Good morning, everyone. I'm Deshae McLeod, President and CEO of Community Hospice, and I'm so glad that you have joined us today for our 2020 Coping with the Holidays workshop. We so wish that we could have joined together again this year in person, but due to the public health emergency, we were unable to gather in person today. Community Hospice has been privileged to serve our community for more than 40 years, serving our patients, our families, and our healthcare providers during some of the most difficult times of their lives. Our grief support services are not only for patients' families who have received hospice services, but are available to anyone in the community who has suffered from a loss. Today, we will explore ways to find meaning even in the midst of grief and loss, and share ideas for self-care to cope with loss and honor your loved one's legacy through the holiday season. Taisha Davis was scheduled to be as our presenter today for our Coping with the Holidays workshop, but due to unforeseen circumstances, she is unable to join us. But don't worry, we have our wonderful Mrs. Carol Schaefer with us today. She will be presenting in just a few moments. Carol is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she has more than 20 years of experience in the fields of counseling and social work. She graduated from San Francisco State University with a BA in psychology and a master's in counseling. During the past 9 years, Carol is concentrated in working in areas of child abuse, anxiety disorders, trauma, bereavement, drug and alcohol addiction, along with treating both individuals and couples. Carol joined our Community Hospice family at the age of 19 as a volunteer. And today we are very honored to have Carol as a member of our staff as a grief support specialist. We are very grateful for her dedication to our mission and for the support that she provides to maybe many of you, as well as all of our community members. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Carol Schaefer.
Thank you, Deshae. Hi, I am Carol Schaefer, and I am very proud and very honored to work with Community Hospice and to be with you today for Coping with the Holidays. And like Deshae said, it is really unfortunate that you can't be here with us today, but it is the most important thing that you are home safe. So thank you for joining us. So today we are going to be talking about coping with the holidays. And this virtual workshop is called Self-Care, May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. And I thought about that because when we've lost somebody who is so dear to us, the holidays can be foreboding, something that we may not be looking forward to, and we may not be feeling very merry or bright. But then I thought some of the things that I have had to tell my clients when I'm here, and even myself, to allow some sort of an opening, some sort of a way for some happiness, maybe joy, and some sort of light. And I felt that there was some poetry and some quotes that I was thinking about, and one of them that I send to my clients a lot, and I think of as well, is one by Maya Angelou. And she talks about a 19th century song, African-American song, and it says, when it looks like the sun isn't going to shine anymore, God puts a rainbow in the cloud. And she said, I've had so many clouds, but I've also had rainbows. And I've told my clients that, and I think about all of the people that have been rainbows in my clouds. And I thought of all of the people that have been kind to me, those rainbows in my clouds, and who I tell to come with me wherever I go when things are going to be difficult. And they have been long gone. Maybe they have died, but they are still with me and in my heart. And the other quote I was thinking of was Leonard Cohen, who says that there is a crack in everything, and that is where the light gets in. And a lot of us feel very broken, and we do have lots of cracks. And the other one is from Rumi, who was a 13th century poet, who says, "The wound is where the light enters you." And I think a lot of us feel very wounded around the holidays, especially if we have just lost somebody that we love so very dear. So as I go through this, I'm going to start kind of thinking of some things that'll help you feel a little bit more merry and a little bit more bright, even if it's just a little bit. And there we go. So one of the first things that we can do is that we can actually talk about our grief. And I think one of the really important things is to not allow yourself to feel like you are going to be the person to bring whatever holiday event that you do choose to go to, that you're going to bring everybody down, and that you're allowed to talk about your grief and allowed to talk about the person who isn't there. And if you don't feel comfortable in doing that, then there's always ways to set boundaries for yourself around what times it could be appropriate, which people that you know will support you in your time of grief. And the other thing is that we can find a new way to honor our loved one. I know that when Deshay said that I came here when I was 19 years old, I came to hospice because when my grandmother died, hospice came to our home and helped her to die. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I always knew that I was going to be a counselor or in some sort of human services. And I thought, you know, why don't I just give back and do this internship and make sure that I can just give back to what hospice gave to my family. And then 30 years later, I came back and I ended up losing my other grandmother, almost exactly 30 years from when I lost my grandmother, Schaefer. And I thought to myself, how can I do anything to honor them when, especially the grandmother that I just lost 1 year ago, when I'm really feeling, as it says, that I'm kind of sad and cranky and angry that she's not there. And honestly, the first holiday, I don't really remember a whole lot. And you may find yourself in that position where you're not going to really remember a whole lot. And that's okay. And that's normal. And so one of the important things is to check in with yourself regularly during this time of the year and to listen to all of the parts of your body and mind in order to be safe and to be emotionally safe as well as physically. And when the holidays come around, like I said, they are very difficult when we've experienced a loved one who has died. And watching other people laugh and celebrate when we think that they shouldn't be, nobody should be happy. Everybody should know that we are wounded, that we are in pain, and we may not really feel like celebrating at all. And it's a way of kind of changing our view that we have to learn how to make a new path. And that may mean different rituals and holding on to the same traditions, if that makes sense. I know that there are a lot of dishes that we can make that our grandmothers, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, even our daughters and sons that may have made, or that was their favorite meal. And if you've had these kinds of thoughts before this year, coming up for the holidays, just to know that you're not alone, that everybody is having a really difficult time in wanting to try to be merry and to be bright. And one of the things about grief is that it can really manifest itself in many different ways. And one of those ways is our physical bodies. And that's why I said we have to always check in with ourselves. Physically, and I know I've experienced the same thing, is that it's really difficult to sleep. Sometimes we really don't feel like we can breathe because we have been, as I said earlier, we have been wounded. They were walking around and nobody can see how much we are hurting because we're hurting on the inside. And I always think, and I tell my clients this all the time, that I wish that there was something that I could wear after someone has died, just so people could know. In many cultures, they do that, where they wear something. I don't even know what it was. I can't really think right now, but I mean, just something where they would know, oh, that person is in grief and mourning. They just lost somebody. They just lost a daughter. They just lost a mother. They just lost their grandmother, their father. And so that people would understand how to act around us. But for the most part, people have no idea how much emotional pain we're in. And it aches. And sometimes we don't want to eat. And sometimes we want to eat too much. And so it's really important to realize and check in with your body that these things may be happening and what healthy ways you can cope with getting all of your physical needs met so that you don't have to endure so much pain. And the other way that it manifests is probably the one that most of us feel is the emotional part of grief. These are the things that people actually feel the most and sometimes really don't even have words to put to it. And the other thing about all of these things right here on the list, and probably 100 others, is that you can have a wave of emotions that happen within 10 minutes. You can go from crying to laughing to being really angry to being very anxious and to maybe even just be numb and wander around not feeling anything. And in the end, it's very helpless feeling because you just want to scream for help, but you feel like no one's really listening. Some of the psychological things that can happen to us when especially the holidays are ahead is that we feel a sense of depersonalization. And that's a very psychological word. And that means that we just kind of wander around, and we're in a big party, but we're really not there. Physically, you're there, but you're somewhere else. And it's a way that your body just kind of, or actually yourself just kind of leaves your body to protect itself. And we find that we search for the meaning of life and death. And that's called the assumption. It's a violation of what we call the assumptive world. That we assume that our child, who was younger than us, was supposed to be there. That these kinds of things don't happen to good people. These things don't happen to people who live the way our family lives or believes in the God that our family believes in. And what really does happen is that we question ourselves, or why did we live and this person didn't? And you're going to have a lot of preoccupations about your loved one, especially before the holidays, because As I remember my grandparents, and especially my grandmothers, who were pillars in our family, they held everything together. And when they died, things were never the same. And how are we going to have any kind of holiday fun or any kind of holiday period without them when they made it so magical? The other thing that can happen is a lack of concentration, and a lot of people around the holidays have dreams, or just any time really after the death, or maybe even 2 to 3 years or 10 years down the road, you have dreams of your loved one. And some of these dreams can be very comforting and good, and some of them can be very confusing and scary. So some of the things that we do behaviorally is that you'll find yourself crying, and I hope you do cry, because that is actually one of the healthiest things for people to do. Some of us avoid reminders, and this is something that I found when I lost family members and friends over the years, that I didn't want to drive by, and I still actually have not done this, is go by my grandmother's home, because it's only been 1 year, and I know that's just going to be too hard for me, and I know that that's okay, but I very much avoid that. You're going to have kind of a withdrawal because emotions are so exhausting. You're going to have mood swings, as I said, that you're going to feel lots of feelings within an hour, or maybe even, like I said, 10 minutes. Relationships in the family change when somebody dies. It's like the family is a mobile, and when you take a part off and that part is lost, everything tilts. And that is something that happens in every family. No family can be the same, truly, without an important figure on earth and in the family. Some of us do a lot of overactivity just so we don't have to think about all of the things that we're missing. And another one is just apathy, that we just don't care, that life isn't ever going to be the same. And that's normal to have that feeling. So some of the thoughts that may be going through your head, and these are some of the things that I have definitely thought, is who's going to carve the turkey this year? You know, Dad was always the one who did it. And maybe you don't feel like cooking, decorating, or even having any energy to visit anyone at Thanksgiving. And I know last year, for me, I didn't want to go to Thanksgiving, even though my aunt did have it. And it was only, I think, not even 2 weeks after my grandmother's death. Because I thought, who's going to go pick her up? Well, we don't have to go pick her up. Okay. So when I go get her dish, because she had trouble walking, wait, I don't have to go get her dish. Who's going to sit in her seat? All of these things started coming up for me. For the Jewish tradition, maybe someone just wants to erase Hanukkah, and I'll just feel too empty to celebrate. You know, my wife bought all of the 8 gifts for each night for all of the grandchildren. That is way too much shopping. I don't know how to shop. I can't do that. So these are some of the things that we think about. How am I going to get through this without my loved one? So moving forward with our grief, and the first step is to recognize that the first year is challenging, The second year actually might be challenging. The fifth year might be challenging. Everybody's grief looks different. We really don't have a timeline. But I think that the holidays in general are very difficult to look forward to. And especially this year, because a lot of us won't be able to be with family and loved ones. But that you can prepare and plan and get the support that you need. And remember too that the anticipation of the holiday can actually be more difficult than the holiday itself. And going back to Thanksgiving of last year for me, when I did not want to go, because I could not imagine it without my grandmother there, is I was so scared of who was going to either sit in her seat or who wasn't going to sit in her seat. And I was just so preoccupied with that. And her great-granddaughter, who was my cousin, who was 9, she got her plate of food and she just plopped down in grandma's chair. And it made things so much better. And she did it with such confidence. And I know that my grandmother would have been so happy about that, that it just made everything okay. And I just thought, I worried and perseverated on this for so long. And it just took Chloe to pop down in her chair and it made everything okay. And that's the beautiful thing about children. So ask yourself, do you recognize this holiday season will look different for you? And try to think of maybe how it will look different, but most importantly, how is it going to affect your decisions? And to try and have people to help you with that, because as we talked about with the behavioral and the emotional, the concentrating is not really going to be a strong suit for you at this time. And making decisions are very difficult because you've probably had to make a lot of difficult decisions already. And choosing the day to be one of recalling the pain of your loss, or will it be a day of remembering the person fondly? And that I think is very important because there are always fond memories to have. And maybe if we cannot voice them, somebody else in our family will be able to. And it is about us to be able to take in that joy, take in that merry and bright feeling that still exists, but just in a different way. Will you choose to set realistic expectations of yourself this holiday season? That's difficult. And my advice, and what I tell my clients, is to definitely set realistic expectations. Don't overexert yourself. Don't do too much. Take time outs. Do the things that you need to do to limit yourself and take care of yourself in all of those ways that grief manifests itself. Some of the tips that we do have, like I said, is to plan ahead for all of those really scary questions. Plan ahead, find out what's actually happening, who's having the holiday, who's not having the holiday. And if you feel like you want to have a holiday that isn't as extreme as maybe other years have been, then you want to make sure that everybody knows and that everyone's in agreement to what you are going to do. And even if they're not in agreement, that's okay, but they just know where you need to be. And to know what's going to happen if you do decide to be with family this year. Are the same traditions going to be in place, or are they going to be different? And to kind of get as much knowledge as possible so that nothing is too much of a surprise. Because as we know, there are so many things that can trigger us during the holidays and make us feel that hollowness, that emptiness, and sadness. So remember that not everyone is going to grieve in the same way. And in the world of bereavement and grief and bereavement, we do call children and adolescents our little grievers. And sometimes that they will not be showing, and they won't, because developmentally they are just different. And they may be sad, but maybe they're out laughing and playing and having a really good time. And that can be difficult when we're really sad and we've lost somebody, because as I said before, we kind of feel like everybody should know. Everybody should be feeling sad or hurt, or the same way we do. But children tend to kind of move along, even though we have no idea really what's going on, or maybe that they do cry later on, or in the bathroom or in their room when we're not looking. So to be careful of that. And to try and take it in as a moment of joy. I do remember too, when I was leaving the hospital, when my grandmother was very sick and we knew that we were going to put her on community hospice's services, that when I was walking to the elevator and I was very numb, there was a group of children that were laughing and playing, and I was very annoyed, honestly. And I always remember that because they had no idea. They didn't know what was going on. And I think I just always remember that part of my own grief. And to try and take that and move forward with it. So despite the temptation to just be alone under a blanket during the holidays and not have any contact with anybody, which is very seductive during this time, would not be advisable. And I say that because sometimes the worst thing is for us to sit and be in our own heads. And that all of those things that I talked about earlier, the physical, the emotional, behavioral manifestations of grief, are going to really come up if we're by ourselves. And it won't be safe. And safety is around being with people that we care about and love. And when we lose somebody, I think that that's where the anxiety and the fear comes in, because we don't feel like we're safe anymore. So it's okay to avoid some circumstances and to make those plans, like maybe take your own car or drive yourself, and limit yourself to only things that feel comfortable for you. But being alone probably is not advisable. And again, to take in moments, even if it's just a few during the holiday season, of some joy and some even maybe happiness and peace and comfort. And I really think that peace and comfort in knowing that you do have family, you do have friends, you do have people that care about you, is maybe the one little thing that you can savor. And again, surrounding ourselves with people that we love and support us. And sometimes that may not be family. Maybe you have a family of friends, or your friends or your family. People that really listen to you. And I do remember that one woman who I saw said that you really find out who your real friends are after you have had a loved one die. But sometimes the people that we think are going to be there for us the most actually are the people that go away. And some of the people that we never thought would care or never come to our aid are the ones that show up, are the ones that call us. And so maybe it's those people that you need to be surrounding yourself with this holiday season. It's your choice. So create a healing environment, whatever that is, even if it's with your pets, it's another life. Create some new traditions that represent even how your life has changed. Like, I think Chloe's going to be sitting at our Thanksgiving table in Grandma's seat now, from now on, and that's perfectly fine, and that'll be the new tradition. And then keep old traditions to honor the person that impacted your life so much, whatever that is for your holiday. So one of the things that I tell people to do to help is to, and help cope, is to think of things in a creative way. Because a lot of times we really don't have words for feelings, because the loss is so devastating that we can't really talk about it. And so use a creative expression and journaling and anything really, even if it's exercising, something that can help you to cope. And some of us do like to talk. And now with technology, like we are here today, is that a phone call or a video chat with Zoom or FaceTime with a friend or a family member can be something that can really help us get through. Remember your limits. Grieving takes energy. There's a lot of people come in when they're emotionally exhausted and they're like, I haven't been doing anything. I've just been laying around. Why am I so tired? Because you have been feeling all of this pain and emptiness, and you've been crying. And that is just as exhausting as physical activity. And so be gentle with yourself and be gentle with your children. So there's a lot of things that help us, and there's a lot of things that hurt us. And there's a whole list of things here. And I think that I said earlier that crying is really a good thing. And a lot of people come in and they start crying and they don't even know they're going to cry when they meet with me. And they always apologize. And that's why we have a lot of tissue here. And I think that I'm always, please don't be sorry. This is a very normal thing, and it's good to cry, because stuffing your feelings is going to manifest itself in a physical way or a psychological way. So the more that we grieve, the more that we show it, the more that we allow ourselves, then the better we are going to be, and the more that we are going to heal. So kind of blocking off the world, curtains closed and doors locked, and isolating yourself. If you find yourself starting to do that, that means that something might be going on. That maybe it's time to just make a phone call or go for a walk, do something. Again, planning ahead for the holidays is very important. Holding on to anger and guilt and regret and fear probably is going to eat you up inside. Some of the safe places that we can go is to visit your loved one's gravesite. A lot of people do that. And then creating a safe space to honor them. And I know in my home and all of the places I've lived, I've always had a space in my home for the people, all the people that I've lost. And unfortunately, as I get older, that is getting bigger and bigger. And I remember when I had all of 3 of my grandparents on that shelf, their pictures, and last year I didn't want to put my last grandparent on that shelf, and I have, but that was very difficult. But it's still, I can always go to it and look at it and look at all of these symbols and pictures that I have of my loved ones, and that makes me feel comforted. And sometimes I don't want to look at it, and that's okay too, that I have to give myself permission, just like you need to give yourself permission to feel okay about doing some things and not doing some things, and going back and forth between your grief work and restoring yourself onto a new path. And I think for everybody it's different, but everyone will know in your hearts and just your instincts when the time is right for you. Notice the ways that your loved ones are still present. So obviously we're not going to forget about our loved ones, and we have to bring them with us. And they're always with us. And it's about finding ways, and sometimes we have no idea. And so the challenge is to find like 5 to 10 ways of how somebody is still with us. And that can be in just your appearance. I look just like my grandmother Schaefer. It's very clear that I am her granddaughter. And I still talk about her like she is still alive, and she's been gone for 31 years now. But I look in the mirror and I see her. And I see my other grandmother in her great-grandchildren, and there are objects and traditions and, again, just shared values that we have in the way that we behave, in the way that we show our emotions, that are all symbolic of the person that we have lost. And those are ways that they are still with us. Some things I talk to people a lot about is grieving. But sometimes when we've just lost somebody, that's probably one of the most difficult things to do, is to breathe. Because we end up crying, we end up not being able to breathe because we are just filled with so much anger or sadness. But if you can, and usually it's good to go outside to breathe, it's probably one of the healthiest ways for your body to come back to a place that's safe. So, and that's about being kind to yourself and respecting your body. Again, one of the things also that I use a lot that's on here is limiting negative news or even gossip, which happens a lot during the holidays. A lot of people are very, some people can talk about things that we just don't want to hear, and it's okay to not engage in those conversations. To try and have some gratitude. A lot of times I ask my clients to even list 3 to 5 things every morning that they're grateful for. And one of my clients actually said that she was grateful for the color yellow, which I thought was very, very cool. Focus on what you can control, and that's really only your thoughts and your behaviors. The way you act, I think, is really the only way that we can control ourselves. We can't control others. We can't control people, places, and things. So make sure that you have a schedule. I do have a lot of clients that write lists, and make sure that they have to, because right now you probably cannot remember a lot of things. And even as we get older, we can't remember a lot of things. So I'm always writing lists. Music is very soothing and helpful for people, and accepting that you have limits. Again, please be kind to yourself, that you do have limits, and to realize that your emotions are like the ocean with ebbs and flows, and just take a moment at a time. So one of the things that we talk about too here at Community Hospice in our bereavement department is called grounding. That is the formal term for it. And what it is, it's stimulating the 5 senses for relaxation and stress relief and anxiety. And I think anxiety is one of the really biggest feelings that people have around the holidays, and especially when you've lost a loved one. And so something we can feel, something we can smell, something that we can taste, and something that we can hear. and try to include something for your loved one that they enjoyed.
You know that many of you, whether it's through the loss of this pandemic or a grief or a loss that you've suffered through death this year, the holiday season can be really challenging. And we wanted to come together to show you just a few options and examples of self-care boxes to help when you feel overwhelmed or stressed or experiencing anxiety or any other grief manifestations that would come up through this holiday season. So I have with me today our participants to make our grief self-care boxes to get us to the holidays. We have Jeff and Anne-Marie, and Felicia. So as we make it, I want to go ahead and have us have some samples and examples for you to make at home with different boxes. And please keep in mind that if you don't have a box available, you can do this in bags, do this in backpacks, do it without a box at all. Whatever you have on hand, at home, in your house, available to you, please feel free to use. So we do have some arts and crafts here as well as our own boxes that we're going to decorate from the inside and the outside. And this is a really good activity to do with families, with kids, or by yourself. So to get started, these boxes are already decorated. I'm just using a box that came in the mail that I wrapped with some wrapping paper. So again, just any box that you have on hand could be good. Wrapping paper, decorated, painted, whichever. So in my box, I actually kind of had a little stuff there. For me, some of the things that help me are hugs and actually feel the soft thing and being able to press up against something warm. And so I wanted to put a bear there just for comfort and for something to feel and ground myself if I get overwhelmed or sad. I just feel like I'm missing that touch and that kind of connection. I'm making my box in honor of my mother. She passed away the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and that was really hard. So having a care box for the holidays is really a useful thing.
For me, it's somewhat difficult because I had something of a complicated relationship with our shelter. We had unresolved issues that I was hoping would get resolved before we died, but it didn't happen. While he was alive, we were hope we would have that conversation. And when he died, that hope was dashed. And that's what I was leading to. And there was actually some joy in that discovery because I was feeling grief at the time of the loss of that hope. It was a good man, but communication and feelings were difficult for him. So it was good to express some of my appreciation and thanks for him. Couldn't really do it to him with him alive. Well, I had bigger to die before we time.
I remember like when I was little, when I was around 4 years old, she came around and she bought a box of Caterpillar lavender tea and she tried it and she loved it. She absolutely loved it, and it was to the point where she thought, I don't want to let my granddaughter try this. She made me a cup and she put a little bit of honey in it for me, and I loved it. And I remember every time she came around, we always had a box of this so that way she could make it for me. Spiritually, she's with me. Physically, she's gone. But I had to remind myself that she's with me. I know that she's probably right there to rubbing my shoulders.
Okay. So hopefully that's something that you can think about doing as a self-care box, and especially one that can incorporate you and the loved one that you lost. Um, one of the things that people wonder is how to even support somebody who's grieving, especially a friend or even another family member. And, you know, even being somebody who has done this and met with hundreds of people and just with all of any type of grief and loss for over 20 years that I've been working with maybe thousands of people, is that there's nothing really that you can say that particularly will heal them and make everything go away. There's just nothing. If that were the case, then I would have to find something else to do and it would be a lot easier for all of us. But that's just not reality. That doesn't happen. And so one of the things that we can actually do to support a person is to support their choices, because we can never really truly understand somebody's grief and pain until we've actually been in their shoes. And that is very true. That when I lost one grandma at 14, it was a completely different thing at my age when I was 44 at that time. And it was just, I understood a little bit better of what people were going through, but I still couldn't completely understand. So include someone, a friend, who doesn't really want to be with their family and they've lost a loved one. Include them into, you know, your Zoom Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday it is that you celebrate. Be prepared that plans might change. So that person may not want to come over to your house or not want to be included on a computer forum, you know, Zoom or a FaceTime chat with you, because it's just too difficult for them this year. And so not to take it personally, it's just what they're going through. Sending cards, or even a letter is still a very cherished thing for many people, especially people that are older. But actually, I have always enjoyed cards and messages. And sometimes people will be expecting a card from the loved one who has died. And that can be really difficult because maybe this is your first holiday season not getting a card or a gift from that person. And so sending something through the mail can be really healing for a friend or family member. Offer any kind of help or support. One of the things that, you know, we say is, how can I help you? What can I do to help? Instead of asking somebody, how are they doing? I think that can be kind of a challenging question for them to actually answer. So instead of saying, how are you doing? You might want to say, how can I help you? How can I support you? And really the best thing to do, which is most of my job, is just to sit and listen. You don't have to fix things because you can't fix things. And as difficult as that may sound, and as difficult as it may be to hear somebody crying or in a lot of pain, to be there and to just listen and be present with them, even over the phone, can mean such a huge difference for them, because a lot of times, as I said, a lot of people go away. One thing that I have used is that I will text message people. And that's just such an easy thing that we all do, but just something that's thinking about you. Is there anything that I can do to help you? Even if it's a text message, it's something. Remember, grief does not only affect us in the first holiday, and I think that I already had spoken to that sometimes the second, third, fifth, 10th year, for some reason or another, can be more difficult. And it just depends on each individual person. So grieving during the holidays alone, and this may be something that just might happen this year given the state of the pandemic, that a lot of us aren't going to be able to be in person like we want to be because we need to keep ourselves safe. And that's one thing that we all know, that we're not alone in this. And even when you're grieving, you're not alone. There are people coming in for, I know, grief counseling all the time, and they think that they're the only people that feel that way, that talk that way. And one of my main jobs is to normalize people's feelings, that you're not the only one, that you're not crazy. And that's one thing people, am I crazy? No, you're not crazy. You're a human being. And so to set realistic expectations again for yourself, that you are only human, you can only do so much, and it's okay if you can't do everything. Reaching out to others, even if it feels uncomfortable. So a lot of us feel like, well, they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to hear my story over and over again. They're going to think I should be over it by now. I don't want to bring everybody down. That is something that I think almost everyone that I've met with, and even myself, have thought. But a lot of times it's not quite the opposite. And again, those are going to be the people that you know will be there for you. Always make plans in advance if you can. And if you do break those plans, that's okay. It's just practicing making a plan. Because the more that we practice something, the better that we get at it. And the more that we can start restoring our lives onto another path. And I think that when we talk about restoring our lives, I just want to make clear that doesn't mean that we're going to forget about the person or that we're not grieving them. We're always going to remember them and grieve them on some level. So it's just living on earth without them at this time. Another thing is to, again, host a Zoom event if you feel up to it, or at least participate in one. Because the really great thing about those is that when you need to go, you can go, and you're still sitting in your own comfortable home. Again, your grief is unique. So don't let anyone tell you something that you don't feel, or I guess maybe don't take it personally. That people generally are trying to help you, or they're having trouble seeing you in your own pain, and they may mean well because it's difficult for them. So just to be graceful and walk away, and just know that, grief is going to be coming in waves, and it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. A lot of people think that if they are crying a lot or having a really hard week and they're thinking about their loved one too much, that means that they're back at the beginning, and that's not the case. That is just how our bodies and our brains work with grief. So remember to be gentle with yourself, give yourself grace, and you don't need to provide the perfect holiday. This is not a Macy's commercial. This is not a Hallmark movie. This is your life, and you get to choose what you want to do with it, and that's okay. So, may your days be merry and bright. Again, if you feel wounded, that's where the light comes in. If you feel broken, then the crack, even if it's the smallest crack, is the way that the light comes in. And I think that grief is just going to be a very difficult time for holidays. It always is. And each holiday season reminds us of the ones that we have lost. But it also is an opportunity to bring on new traditions, to practice old traditions, to come up with new rituals, and to really choose what you want to do. and to be safe. And that means emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. So we're going to end with a poem that has been done, I think, every year for coping with the holidays. And it's, again, too bad that I can't be in front of an audience of people, because usually that is a lot easier for me, actually. So I am going to read the poem, and then we will end. So it's called For That I Am Grateful. It doesn't seem to get any better, but it doesn't seem to get any worse either. And for that, I'm grateful. There are no more pictures to be taken, but there are memories to be cherished. And for that, I am grateful. There is a missing chair at the table, but the circle of family gathers close. And for that, I am grateful. The turkey is smaller, but there's still stuffing. And for that, I'm grateful. The days are shorter, but the nights are softer. And for that, I'm grateful. The pain is still there, but it only lasts for moments. And for that, I'm grateful. The calendar still turns, the holidays still appear, and they still cost too much, and I am still here. And for that, I am grateful. The room is still empty, the soul still aches, but the heart remembers. And for that, I am grateful. The guests still come, the dishes pile up, but the dishwasher works. And for that, I am grateful. The stillness remains, but the sadness is smaller. And for that, I am grateful. The moment is gone, but the love is forever. And for that, I am grateful. For that, I am blessed. Love was once and still is a part of my being. And for that, I am grateful. For that, I am living. So I want to thank the video participants, Taisha Travis, Jeff Venable, Anisha Singh, and Anne-Marie Mangini, Anne-Marie. And if you would like to learn more about the community services, community hospice, grief and bereavement services, please give us a call, 578-6300. Again, that's 209-578-6300. And if you have any questions or anything you need, we are always here at Community Hospice, and we welcome you. And we are here to support you. And so I wish you all a good day, and thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. Bye-bye.